Disinterest in your life and emotions. At first, every detail about you seemed to fascinate him. He wanted to know how your day was, what your dreams, fears, and achievements were. Every conversation was filled with curiosity and empathy, as if the story of your life were a book he couldn't wait to read. But over time, this attention began to fade. His interest in your emotions faded, and now, the questions that once came naturally have disappeared. You notice that he no longer asks how you are. He doesn't care if your day was difficult or if something amazing happened. If you try to share something important, you get empty answers, an automatic "that's great," or even an uncomfortable silence. That genuine desire to connect with your feelings is no longer present. And what's more, frustrating when you realize that he's still interested in other things, his work, his friends, his hobbies, but he simply doesn't make a point of including you on that list of priorities. You talk about something that hurt you, and he minimizes it. You get excited about an achievement, and he reacts without enthusiasm. The lack of interest in your emotions is a clear sign of emotional distance and may indicate that he no longer feels the need to strengthen this bond. One of the greatest pillars of a healthy relationship is emotional reciprocity. When one person stops caring about the other's feelings, the bond begins to weaken. And the worst part is that often this happens subtly, and you only notice it when you are already immersed in a cycle of loneliness within the relationship. You feel like you are talking to someone who simply is not listening, that your emotions no longer have space, and that the connection that existed before is falling apart before your eyes. So, how should you react to this sign? The first step is to observe whether this change happened gradually or if it was sudden. It could be a reflection of a difficult time that he is going through or a phase of stress. But if this has become a pattern and he simply doesn't care about how you feel anymore, maybe it's time to ask yourself, is it worth continuing to invest in someone who no longer cares about what's going on in your heart? If this sign set off a warning for you, stay tuned for the next ones. Leave a like and keep watching, because at the end of the video, I'll show you what to do to reverse this situation before it's too late. Communication has always been one of the most important pillars of any relationship. In the beginning, messages were accompanied by enthusiasm, expressive emojis, affectionate words, and even that good anxiety of seeing his name flashing on the cell phone screen. Conversations flowed naturally, like a game of ping pong where each response was a new opportunity for connection. But suddenly, everything changed. Responses became short, cold, devoid of emotion. What used to be a lively exchange now boils down to a simple, okay, okay. This change may seem small at first, but it carries a deep meaning. When someone truly cares, communication goes beyond obligation. There is a desire to share, to listen, to connect. But when messages become automatic and without energy, it is a strong indication that interest may be waning. Discouragement in responses does not happen by chance. It could be that he no longer sees any point in having long conversations, that his curiosity about your day has dissipated, or even worse, that he is only keeping in touch out of habit and not out of genuine desire. And it doesn't stop there. If he used to send messages spontaneously and now only responds when you take the initiative, this is also a warning sign. Reciprocity is fundamental in any relationship. When one of the parties stops showing interest, the dynamic becomes unequal and exhausting. You notice that you are always trying to start a conversation, always looking for a way to keep the dialogue alive, while he only responds when necessary, without showing enthusiasm or a real desire to continue the conversation. Another worrying sign is the lack of depth in the dialogues. If before you talked about everything, dreams, fears, plans for the future, and now the interactions are limited to empty and superficial messages, this shows that the emotional connection may be losing. When someone cares, asks questions, wants to know more, shows curiosity and involvement. But when conversations start to be limited to monosyllabic answers or generic messages, it means that emotional involvement is weakening. And what to do about this? The first step is to observe whether this change is a one-off or if it has already become a pattern. It could be that he is going through a difficult time or is overwhelmed with personal or professional problems. But if this coldness in communication has been going on for a while and is accompanied by other signs of withdrawal, then it is time to face reality and decide whether it is worth insisting on something that seems to be falling apart. Healthy relationships need real exchanges, mutual interest, and true connection. If you feel like you are talking to yourself, struggling to maintain a dialogue that he no longer cares about continuing, perhaps it is time to ask yourself, is it worth investing in someone who does not show the same interest as you? Did you identify with this sign? Then watch the video until the end, because the next ones may be even more revealing. And if you want to learn how to deal with this situation in the best way, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any exclusive content about relationships. Do you feel like something has changed, but you can't explain exactly what? Does that intense connection that once seemed unshakable now seem to cool off little by little? If he doesn't look at you the way he used to, if the messages have decreased, or if the moments together have lost that vibrancy, know that it may not be all in your head. There are clear signs that a man is losing interest, and the worst mistake you can make is to ignore them. But before jumping to conclusions, you need to understand these signs in depth. Sometimes the distance can be temporary, the result of a tiring routine or external problems. Other times it can indicate something deeper, a real change in his feelings. And if you don't know how to identify this in time, you may end up clinging to a relationship that is slipping through your fingers without even realizing it. In this video, I'll reveal the this most obvious signs that he's losing interest. And number 5 may be the most painful of all. You will understand each of these signs, learn to recognize them in his behavior, and most importantly, find out what to do so that you don't become just another memory in his life. So if you've ever found yourself asking yourself, does he still feel the same way about me? Watch until the end. Because one thing is certain, the truth may hurt at first, but it's the first step to regaining control of your story. And today, you will leave this video much stronger, prepared and aware of what is really happening. Did you identify with these words? Then watch the video until the end, because the next ones may be even more revealing. And if you want to learn how to deal with this situation in the best way, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any exclusive content about relationships. The decrease in the initiative to contact is like the silence that slowly sets in after the end of a great show, where the vibrant energy gives way to a calm that at first glance may seem like just a natural pause. At the beginning, when the relationship is full of enthusiasm, each phone call, each spontaneous message sent carries the emotion of a unique encounter, reflecting the desire to connect and share special moments. However, when this behavior becomes rare, it may be an indication that something has changed. This subtle change manifests itself in the absence of gestures that were once spontaneous and frequent, whether it is the lack of that cheerful "good morning" or forgetting to call to find out how the day was. It is as if the emotional connection has faded, marking the beginning of a distance that, if not noticed in time, can become a difficult barrier to overcome. This change in the dynamics of communication does not necessarily mean the end, but it is a clear sign that it is time to pay attention and, if necessary, act to restore the connection that once made hearts beat in rhythm. A lack of interest in plans for two is one of the clearest signs that something in the relationship is changing. At first, everything seemed fluid and natural. Meetings were planned with enthusiasm. Any free time was an opportunity to be together. and even the simplest moments became special. But suddenly this scenario begins to change. Invitations to go out are ignored. Excuses to avoid meeting up become frequent. And when you try to suggest something, he responds with vague phrases without showing any enthusiasm. It's as if the desire to spend time together is disappearing, leaving behind only a feeling of indifference. This change often doesn't happen abruptly. At first, it may seem like just a phase, a period of stress or accumulated commitments. But over time, the lack of effort to create moments together becomes increasingly evident. If before he made a point of fitting you into his routine, now it seems like anything else takes priority over being by your side. And the worst part? Even when you finally meet, there's a feeling of distance, as if he's physically there, but his mind is somewhere else. A lack of initiative to maintain the connection is a silent warning that his feelings may be cooling. Healthy relationships are built on the mutual desire to share experiences and strengthen the bond. But when one of the parties no longer sees any meaning in this, the imbalance begins to weigh. And if you feel like you are always struggling alone to keep that flame alive, maybe it is time to stop and reflect. Is he still as involved as before? Less intimacy and physical connection. In the beginning, the attraction between you was intense. The touching, the long hugs, the passionate kisses, all of this happened naturally, effortlessly, as if each body was calling for the other. But suddenly something changed. The affection became rare, the kisses became quick and emotionless, and those spontaneous touches that once demonstrated desire and complicity now seem almost non-existent. This change in intimacy does not happen by chance. When a man is truly involved, he seeks contact, whether through a tight hug, a subtle caress, or even a look that says it all without needing words. But when interest begins to wane, physical distance becomes inevitable. You notice that he no longer seeks your touch as much, that he avoids prolonged eye contact, and that even more intense moments of intimacy seem forced or less frequent. And it's not just about sex. The lack of physical connection goes beyond that. Small gestures like holding your hand, playing with your hair, or simply sitting closer are no longer part of your routine. His body seems to say what his words haven't yet. Something has changed, and the energy between you is no longer the same. This distance can be a reflection of several factors. It could be a period of stress, a personal problem he's facing, or even an exhausting routine. But if this lack of intimacy has become a pattern, without clear explanations, it could indicate that his interest is waning. And the most worrying thing, you start to feel alone in the relationship, as if you were just a presence there, without the connection that used to make everything worthwhile. So, what should you do in this situation? The first step is to understand if there is something external influencing this change, or if his feelings are really cooling off. The worst thing you can do is ignore the signs and pretend that nothing is happening. If you feel that the chemistry and complicity have disappeared, perhaps it's time to have a sincere conversation and assess whether there is still room to recover this connection. If you've ever felt this physical and emotional distance, keep watching. The next signs may be even more revealing. And if this content is helping you, leave your like and comment below if you've ever been through something similar. Your story can help other people. He stops caring about how you feel. In the beginning, any slight change in your mood would catch his attention. If you were sad, he would ask what was wrong and try to cheer you up. If you were worried, he would offer support and want to know how he could help. He was there not only for the happy times, but also when you needed a shoulder to lean on. But suddenly, that sensitivity disappears. Now, if you show that something is bothering you, he simply ignores it or reacts with indifference. If before, he noticed when you were different, today, it seems like he doesn't even notice. Or worse, he notices and chooses not to care. Conversations that were once full of empathy and care have become superficial, and the space that used to exist for Your emotions is now taken up by silence or impatience. His lack of concern for your feelings doesn't happen out of nowhere. Often, it is a direct reflection of a loss of interest. When someone truly cares, the happiness and well-being of the other person is their priority. But when this care disappears, it means that the emotional bond is weakening, and this can be devastating because you start to feel invisible within the relationship, as if your emotions were no longer important. The worst part is when this lack of empathy is accompanied by irritation. You try to express something that hurt you, and he responds impatiently, saying that you are exaggerating or being dramatic. This not only invalidates your feelings, but also makes you question whether you really have the right to feel that way. But the truth is that no one should feel bad for wanting to be heard and valued within a relationship. If you notice that he no longer cares about how you feel, it is a clear warning sign. He may be emotionally distant or even preparing to leave the relationship. And the question you need to ask yourself is it worth continuing in a relationship where your emotions are ignored? If this sign awakens something in you, don't leave now. The next one may be the strongest of all. Leave your like and comment here if you've been through this. Your story can help other women see the truth. He starts avoiding discussions or problems. In the beginning, when something wasn't right, you would talk, debate, work through the issues, and emerge stronger from the situation. Even if there were disagreements, there was mutual respect and a desire to work things out. But over time, you notice that he's starting to avoid any kind of confrontation. It's not that he's become more peaceful, but rather that he's avoiding arguments because he simply no longer cares about resolving the issues between you. He starts to pull away whenever you bring up a serious topic. He avoids things when there's something to be said, and he'd rather stay silent than engage in a conversation that might require reflection or compromise. What used to be attempts to understand each other now become escapes. If you try to talk about your future, your relationship, or even a small problem that's coming up, his response is evasive, or he'll divert the conversation to something unimportant. This is a clear sign that he is no longer willing to invest emotionally in the relationship. And the saddest thing is that this lack of involvement only widens the gap between you. Avoiding conflict does not mean peace. In fact, it is often the opposite. When someone avoids solving problems, they are essentially letting the relationship drift, hoping that time will resolve things on its own. But in doing so, they are neglecting what really matters: communication, understanding, and mutual care. This behavior is especially hurtful because it makes you feel like you are struggling alone. While you are trying to solve the relationship, he seems more concerned with distancing himself emotionally than with finding a solution. The distance is clear, and the feeling that you are in a relationship alone begins to grow. And it is precisely when he starts avoiding any kind of confrontation that the truth becomes more evident. He no longer cares as much about the relationship as you do. But what to do when this happens? The first thing you need to understand is that avoiding discussion or solving problems is not a solution. On the contrary, it's a way of escaping reality, and if he's not willing to face this with you, it's time to reflect on what you deserve in a relationship. The truth is hard, but it's liberating. You deserve someone who's willing to fight for the relationship, someone who, even in the midst of difficulties, wants to resolve and grow with you. Don't accept living in a relationship where you have to fight alone. And if he's running away, it's time to look at yourself and ask yourself, is it worth it to continue like this? Now that you know the signs that he's losing interest, it's time to take control of your own story. Don't let fear or uncertainty stop you from seeking what you truly deserve. Watch other videos on the channel to learn more about how to identify the signs of a healthy relationship and how to regain power in your love life. Leave a like, share with anyone who needs to hear this and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos full of valuable tips.